Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Stephen King podcast. This is episode number 86, and as usual, I have my co-host with me. Hello, Hans.
Hello.
And today we've got the news, and we're also going to be reviewing a play that Stephen King wrote last year called Thin Scenery. So stick around for another great podcast.
Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the death room.
But first up is the news and something exciting. A new excerpt from The Outsider. Have you read it?
I have not.
You have not?
Why? Want to keep myself fresh for this one. So when the book comes out, we can maybe revisit this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Lately, I just don't want to read excerpts anymore. I just want to read the whole thing at once. Why don't you give your impressions of it, though, without getting specific?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I can't not read it when, like you, I'm not that strong. I have to read it. So I read it, and I think this could be one of the best book in years. Actually, it sounds really good, really great.
Cool.
And I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. Is it creepy?
I get a vibe that it is.
Okay.
But it's also based on the cover, which is creepy.
Mm-hmm.
So you really don't know much from the excerpt about the book.
Okay.
But I get the feeling that it's creepy scary, not monster scary, but creepy scary.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I think this one could be really good.
Really hoping so. Like you said, the cover looks creepy and the concept sounds creepy. Still don't know if Holly is in this story or not, but
nothing has been confirmed.
Right.
A lot of guesses, but I would say that my guess is either Holly or the Ralph Anderson connection to Storm of the Century.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess on either of those, but
yeah, that would be cool. That'd be cool for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that's not too far away. That's coming out this summer, so got something to look forward to.
May 27th. So.
Or that's right. It got moved up because of the PEN Award, so that's pretty cool. All right, so our next news item is a new anthology is being released by Stephen King, and it's not strictly his material, but it is an anthology of reprints about flight or fright. And if you know, Stephen King has problems with flying, and he came up with this anthology idea. He has written a new story for it, and it's called The Turbulence Expert. Also, Joe Hill has written a new story especially for this collection called You Are Released. And beyond that, contains a lot of classic horror stories about this, I guess, very specific subgenre of fear of flying. There's some notable stories in there. Everybody will recognize Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, and there's some stories by Ray Bradbury. And this book is being co-edited. Stephen King and Bev Vincent is also working on this anthology, and he has a reprint of one of his stories in here, Zombies on a Plane. If you listen to our next podcast after this one, we have a special guest, don't we, Hans?
Yeah, we do. And it's not Stephen, it's Bev. And I'm going to talk about the book and how it happened. I mean, it's not every day you get asked by Stephen King if you want to co-edit a book with him. So he's going to tell us about that. And I will ask Bev if Stephen really is scared of flying, or if this is just a cue from them to go fly around the world and promote the book.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's also being released in the UK by Hodder and Stoughton. So that will be a trade edition, and the US will be from Cemetery Dance.
Mm-hmm. And
yes.
The cover for the UK version is not solid yet. So this one that they have now, I hope it's not the final one, because that's pretty lame, especially when you compare it to the Cemetery Dance version, which has the jetliner flying into what looks like a storm or a big flock of birds or bats or something like that, which it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what the Hodder and Stoughton release is going to look like.
Yeah, and the US cover is done by Francois Bailancourt, who is also doing the UK cover for Shining in the Dark.
Okay, why don't you take the next one, Hans?
Yes, this is interesting. Stephen King and Morgan Freeman. When you mention those two, a lot of people automatically think about The Shawshank Redemption, where Freeman played the main part. On May 22nd, the same day as The Outsider is released, Freeman will present Stephen King with the PEN American Literary Service Award. So I'm not exactly sure what that award is or how it's decided who gets it, but I'm guessing that it's delivered to writers. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything more about the award itself?
Just as you mentioned, it's a literary service award from the PEN, which is an association that supports writers, American writers, and this will be presented to King at the American Museum of Natural History, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is this the first time that King and Freeman have been together in a public appearance? You would think with the history of the Shawshank Redemption and that they would have met or appeared together, either with each other or some of the other cast, but I can't recall. So this is quite a big moment, and people who are getting to see this is really taking on an extra special dimension.
Yeah, it's nice to see those two together. Or at least when I put the pictures of them beside each other. So I guess that it would be even more nice to see them live.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. And then on the movie front, one of the first remakes, readaptations, depending how you look at it, because I always think when people say remake, they're talking about remaking a movie, but actually what they're doing is they're doing a new adaptation of the story of the book, and that in this case is Pet Sematary. And according to Omega Underground, this is going to start shooting in May in Toronto. And wow, Toronto's become like the hub for shooting Stephen King movies. Of course, we had It done last year, and I think part 2 of that is going to start in Toronto as well this year. Or is that 2019? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think they will start shooting this year, and it's being released in next year.
Mm-hmm. So you have on your site on March 22nd that you mentioned that you talked to the writer of the script.
I did, but
is that David Cope?
Sorry,
who's the writer? Sorry.
Yeah, it's David Kagnashir.
Kadnachik,
yeah.
I think, maybe. Yeah, okay.
I know he did write some scripts I think he wrote scripts for It and early drafts of Pet Sematary, and I think The Stand as well. I think he wrote script for.
Mm-hmm.
That they were never used, but he did them, and we talked a little bit about when he did that. So I actually asked him about this, and he didn't think they would use his script, as it's mentioned in the article. He thought that it had been rewritten a couple of times by now. So
okay.
He couldn't confirm or deny that this was really happening either, because he wasn't involved in it. So, But my guess is that this is speculations, because I mean May is really close.
Right.
I would guess that we would have heard some kind of casting news and stuff like that.
Right.
If they would start filming in just a month.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that the remake of Pet Sematary is the #1 rumored movie of all times. I mean, it's been up there so many times, and it's been casting going on. It's been location scouting. It's been as now reported start shooting and stuff like that, but nothing has happened. So I think that this is, I would take this with as a rumor. I don't trust this news as now. I need some more proof that this is really happening before I get too excited.
Yeah, and just to clarify what you're saying is that Underground is the site that's reporting about the shooting date.
Yeah.
It has been confirmed by Variety that Kevin Kulsh and Dennis Widmerto were going to direct the horror movie. So that part seems solid, but as you've said, we don't know if the shooting date of May in Toronto is actually correct.
No, and I mean, how many times have you read in I mean, Variety is definitely a reliable source, but I mean, there's been numerous of times where reliable sources have had people connected to movies and they have still fallen through and nothing has happened. So the fact that they are mentioning it isn't really the same thing that it's going to happen.
Right.
So I'm a bit skeptical about this actually, but who knows? I guess we'll wait and see.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing is King has been posting about his dog Molly, the thing of evil, on Twitter and Facebook, and I find that very amusing. So hopefully someday he will put all those stuff in a book and give it out, and you can read it and check it out. But she was actually the cover girl for some news for a newspaper called The Beachcomber.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah. Who made her the pet of the week. Or the month, maybe pet of the month, I think it was. So they did a visit Steve and Molly, and took some photos and wrote about it. I mean, it's an article for fun most.
Yeah.
So, but what was interesting for it is that King mentioned that she has actually been the inspiration for a not yet published story. So I guess we'll have to see. He says himself that it's a story about a dog that's terrified of alligators. I would like to see the dog do it that isn't terrified of alligators.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. But
Still,
yeah, it would be fun. I mean, it could be a joke from his side, but you never know where inspiration will come from. I mean,
yeah. He's got a pretty great picture there too for that inspiration of a not yet published story on March 8th on your site. So, who says dogs can't smile? That looks like a pretty happy dog to me. That's a great picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've watched this, I believe. Children of the Corn,
I have.
Runaway, out on DVD and Blu-ray.
Yes. It was released a couple of weeks ago. I actually found that I had some dollars on my iTunes account. So I actually used them to watch it. I think it was $4 or $5. So I thought that, what the heck. Well, it was pretty much what I expected. It's a really, really bad movie.
Right.
It has no logic. It's badly done, bad script, bad acting, bad everything. But it had a little bit fun at the end where you actually get to see the creature called He Walks Behind the Rose.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like, well, if you imagine a creature from the Muppet Show done in plastic, and you only see one leg, something like that. So I laughed at that, but I decided then that I will not put you through the hell of seeing it.
Oh, thank you.
Just for our review.
Yeah.
It was actually that bad. So hopefully this is the last Children of the Corn movie that we will ever see now that King has the rights.
But we still are doing a Children of the Corn retrospective at some point, right?
I think we will. I lost the taste for it a little bit by watching this one, actually. I must admit.
Oh, well, then it was worth it.
Yeah, so I guess that's on the back burner for now, but who knows? It might happen. Yeah.
All right. So that's really good news, at least for me.
Yeah.
And then we have one story left.
Yes. And this is really fun, I think. It's for the Academy of Motion Pictures and Art. And they did like a commercial for a resort and used the Overlook Hotel. They were saying that they were cleaning it up, making it ready for guests. And you could see how they were wiping out the blood that came out from the elevators. And they were inspecting the door that Jack went to work with on his axe and stuff like that. So they really captured how it would be after The Shining in a humorous way with it. So I really like that ad. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty clever and quite a hoot. So hats off to whoever came up with that idea. I really quite enjoyed that. And You can see the clip up at Han's site if you look for the March 6th article about Welcome to the newly renovated Overlook Hotel.
Yeah. It was, I think they captured those small details that those of us who have seen The Shining will definitely and instantly recognize, and made a little fun of them. So good job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is the news.
Yes.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around, pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the night shift.
So now we are going to talk about something that's quite unusual, and that's actually a play written by Stephen King. He has done some before. There's one called An Evening with God, where God is watching TV. So that's quite interesting. This one is called Thin Scenery, and I wasn't sure what to expect when I started it, but it's, and we are going to spoil it, so if you haven't read it, you might want to do that first.
And we should mention that it's in the September 2017 issue of The Plowman.
Yeah, exactly.
Edited by, was it Stuart Nan, who he wrote the baseball book with?
Yeah. So this is a story about a man called Crosby, who is visiting his psychiatrist, Dr. Frobisher.
Frobisher, yep.
Frobisher, yep. Because he thinks that his life is a play. And I think it's actually quite brilliantly written, because they are on a stage, and this Crosby is saying that he can see the audience, and the doctor can't see. He's talking about the fourth wall, which would be the wall between the characters and the audience.
Right.
I was actually very surprised about how good it was. I really enjoyed it all the way up to maybe to the end, because and I mean it's quite open ending. It ends with the audience watching themselves on a screen.
Yep.
So we don't know and actually it turns out that they are in a play, and from well it begins with we think that Crosby is actually the mad one, and he sees the audience and the doctor doesn't. But then it turns out that it is actually a play, and Crosby is crazy because he's not understanding that it's a play. And then they are twisting it once again and saying, oh, who says that it's all not a play? And we see the audience seeing themselves, indicating that they might be in a play as well. So I don't really know what I would have wanted, but I think that the last part where the audience is watching themselves, I think that could have been cut out. But other than that, I liked it. What was your feeling about it?
I love the ending, to be honest.
Okay.
And I'll get into that in a minute. I think that this is, like you said, this is a pretty cool play. I mean, King's playing with not just the whole breaking the fourth wall thing that he tends to do from time to time, but he's also playing with the conventions of the roles that people expect when you're going to a play, or the participants, and blurring the lines between who's actually in the play, in that he has from time to time members of the audience responding to the character Crosby by either waving, or one guy gets up to go to the washroom or something like that. So the line between what's real and what's fiction is blurred quite often in this. And I really liked how he uses the conventions of scene changes within the play, where they dim the lights so that they can change the setting and stuff like that. He uses it in the traditional sense, but as the play goes on, it becomes more and more blurred, and we actually see, the audience actually sees the stagehands changing scenery and not turning down the lights. And then there's this constant trick that he's using, that the window in the set is showing clips of people walking by, usually sometimes in a loop. There's one of a man walking his dog that just plays in a loop, and then at certain points, stagehands start walking across the screen as well, breaking the illusion of the window. So this is all fooling around with perception, and I I thought it was really well done. I mean, at one point you get Nilsson shooting people, but then they just get up a couple of seconds later. So it's it's all, these are all actors in the play. Like that's something you would never do in a normal piece of fiction. So it's quite brilliant. And I think the last scene is just really driving home the point that the audience is living out their own version of reality as well. So they're basically, it's kind of like if you have two mirrors facing each other and you look into them, you get like multiple infinite images of yourself receding down in the reflections. So this is kind of that same thing as like, where does the line between fiction and reality begin and end? So I really thought that King had a lot of clever ways of breaking the conventions of a fictional story using the conventions of a play, how it's staged, and you have that intimate setting and the immediate connection between the piece of work that's being played out and the audience. They're right there. Whereas in other things like movies and reading, you can't really do that because the audience can they're by themselves when they're doing this most of the time, and they can put the book down or the play down. Whereas when you're in this environment, you can't really walk away from it unless you go to the washroom like that one guy did. So I really like everything about this. I think the only thing that I don't really like is the title. I think it's a little thin scenery. I think it's just a little too on nose. I wish he could have called it the Thinny for all I care. I think that would have been a better title. But thin scenery is, I would have preferred thin boundaries or thin walls or something like that. But the scenery. Yeah, I guess you can argue that life is, everything that we see is scenery as well, right? So
yeah,
it's a clever little piece. I really quite enjoyed it, and I don't know where this could be produced or anything because it's only about 28 pages long. I don't think if they did this as a play, it wouldn't last more than 25 minutes or half an hour maybe. So I don't know if that's a format that would work. Like just thinking of Broadway and stuff like that, where movie length stuff where you go get like a 3-act play, which takes a couple hours to do. This would be very quick. So maybe he's building up an anthology of plays that he's going to do. A night with Stephen King at the theater.
Yeah, and I guess you could expand it if you want to make it last longer.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could do that. But I enjoyed the crossing over there between what's real and not, and that when they changed the scenery to be Crosby's flashbacks, and then when he's back, he hasn't had the time to change his clothes, so he's back in the same clothes in the doctor's office and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it as well. I think it's a great story and a great setup, and I could definitely see this one done as like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yep.
For TV and something like that. I definitely think that it would work like that.
But it would be most effective in a real theater setting.
Yeah.
Because if you're there in the audience and you don't know anything about this, to see Crosby character interacting with the audience, that if you're part of the audience, that's a totally different experience if you're watching an audience reacting to a character. So it could work in other mediums, but I think this story would be the most powerful in an actual theater setting.
Yeah, I agree. That would be perfect.
Yeah.
With maybe the exception that it's too short then.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, I don't know, maybe it could be done like a lunch theater. So you could watch it at your lunch hour or something like that. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is something you want to pay attention to, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't mean that you should eat during the play, but I mean, it's the length of it makes it possible for you to go away and see it during the lunch hour, and still maybe have a time to eat.
Yeah. So it's fun to see King playing with the conventions of creative works in fiction and writer, audience, actor interactions. So it was a very interesting, fun piece to read. Yeah.
Hopefully it will be available in the next anthology he releases.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is toys.
Yes, toys.
And Yeah, the reason we're talking about this is because with the new It movie, the market for It toys has exploded, and it seems to be pretty popular as well because all these Pennywise Funko editions with, I think there's about 4 or 5 or maybe 6 different ones. One where his hair is blowing, one where it's bloody, and different version of it. And from reading online, those seems to be pretty hard to find. So I'm guessing they might already become collectibles items out there. And what made me suggest that we talk about this was actually an email that you sent me earlier this week with, was it plush toys?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And they were so butt ugly. I'm sorry, but they were really ugly. And I'm thinking that I know that there's a market for this, and I'm not particularly interested in them myself. I enjoy like the more action figures / statues that are out there.
Yeah.
That are. I mean, there's a couple coming of Pennywise, both the old version and the new one, that are look quite like the original. And I think that they can be very nice to have in your bookshelves with your book standing there. But the other things I don't care that much about. And I think that for a long, long time, we didn't have any Stephen King. I was about to call them dolls, but I guess they're not dolls, but figures.
Yeah.
But now it's exploded with the It movie and some from the Dark Tower as well, and they seems to be coming in every form and edition and everything like that. So it's definitely a change in the way we see and what we're used to get from King movies.
Yep.
And I don't know the reason for this. I don't know I guess King has the rights to allow them to do characters. I don't think that's something that comes with the movie rights or something like that. I think there would have to be some kind of different right to do that, I would guess.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they would license that. Or it could be through the movie company, but that's a licensing arrangement. And I would think that with somebody with King's clout, he's definitely getting some cut of the action on these figures.
Yeah. But I wonder why that has changed. Because, I mean, if you think back from... if we exclude the It movie and the Dark Tower movie, before that, I know that were some Carrie figure, and I know there were some Simpson figure for King himself, and there were some bobbleheads.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was it. I mean, there's been a lot of movies that would be brilliant to make action figures from.
Well, if you're into like fantasy and superhero movies and that, this is a really big market now, merchandising revenue stream for those types of movies. If you go to, what's the name of that company? Like Weta has the company that Peter Jackson started for doing special effects for their movies. They also do all these miniatures of obviously Lord of the Rings characters, but a lot of movie projects. They all get these kind of figures, really detailed action figures of Batman, Superman, Terminator, Alien, you name it. There's a posable figure market out there for all of these things. And I think I'm surprised that the King type of material is getting the same treatment as well, because generally, and maybe this is just my own narrow perspective on it, King readers tend to be older. They're the baby boomers because we grew up with Stephen King. But there is another generation of fans behind us, and they're into collecting this kind of stuff. I mean, for myself, personally, if somebody gave it to me, sure, I wouldn't throw it away, but I definitely don't have any desire, and I've mentioned this in other podcasts, to buy these types of figures, especially like the Funko ones, which are sort of like those little figures in the boxes, which...
Yeah, with giant heads.
Yeah, they look like the characters, but not really. If I was going to buy anything, I think like the ones that are up on your site for the 2 versions of Pennywise on February 28th, those they look like the characters in the movie, and they're pretty detailed. Though the one for the new version of Pennywise, I don't know why his buttons are off the middle of his are off to the side. Like, is that an accident, or I never saw that in the movie? I think his buttons went down the middle of the front of his test. But when I'm looking at it, it says, why are those buttons off to the side like that? That's the first thing that I see.
Well, that's just the prototype. It says on the picture, so maybe they're just testing it out.
Yeah, but that's kind of a weird mistake to make. I don't know. It
Yeah.
doesn't look. There's no symmetry to it like that. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing now that they can do such accurate casts for creating these characters that they look so much like their real life counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
It's really amazing, and it's interesting to see that 1990 Pennywise versus the 2017, because I remember people laughed at or thought the original pictures that they released of the new Pennywise were terrible. But when I look at the two of them compared, like in your post, I think that the 2017 version is way creepier than the 1990 version. So
yeah.
But I think that's just a matter of perspective and time, right? But if I had to pick between the two, I take the new one.
Yeah, I was one of those that from the beginning thought that the new Pennywise looked more scarier than the older one.
Yeah.
So, and I stand by that. But yeah, it's interesting though that there's so many different. I was about to say toys again, but figures. I'm sorry for everyone who thinks I'm disrespecting them by saying toys. I don't mean that in any disrespect, but I stand by that those that you sent me in the last mail, they were but ugly, and I would not want them in my house.
Yeah, well, they were plush toys, and there's like $10 for a SS Georgie boat. Like, really? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's just again an age thing, I guess. I collect some silly things from other people's perspectives, so.
Yeah.
But this, like, when you see people on YouTube videos and they've got like a wall full of these things, I'm just going, I don't know. I don't get it.
I can understand it because I'm deep down inside I am a collector, and when I set my mind to collect something, like I collect one book in every language Stephen King has been published in. I mean, a lot of people say, why? What you gonna have an Arabic Stephen King book for? You can't read it. So that's probably very strange to a few people. So I can definitely understand the collecting part of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'm just happy for myself that I'm not collecting them because it would cost me a lot. And I mean, if you start collecting something, you can't just halfway in say, "Oh, I'm not going to collect this anymore."
Yeah.
Because then you invested and you have to continue collecting them.
Don't you like if you're a diehard fan? Obviously, the value of these things will never go away. But when you collect things like. I think we all went through a period of time where we were buying almost every movie that came out on DVD. And then once streaming came out, you looked at all these DVDs, you says, what am I going to do with all these things? I never even use them anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And you think, all the money I spent on all these DVDs, like it has to be a really classic all-time movie that you know that you're going to watch again for me to buy it now. I still haven't bought the It Blu-ray. I'm waiting to see what the collector or the director's edition's all about. So last time I went crazy was on that kind of stuff was I bought almost every version of the Lord of the Rings movies. I got the DVDs, I got the Blu-rays, I got the extended edition. I bought the extended edition of the soundtrack, and I think that's the last time I really went that kind of crazy on collecting anything. But when you're younger, this kind of stuff, you're into it. You dig it a lot more, right?
Yeah, and if you're collecting like you did with those, I mean, you didn't really collect them to watch every single version of the movie, right? You collect them because there's a collection.
Yeah.
And I mean, at some point you collect. I mean, if you collect, say, every Stephen King movie on DVD, that might be because you want to see them.
Yeah.
But when you start to collect different versions and editions and stuff like that, then it's becoming more a collection than a thing you want to be used practically.
Yes,
it's more like a collection.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
I mean, that's almost like collecting stamps. You're collecting them to get a complete collection.
Stamps are worth money, though.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's not something that you collect to use. It's more like complete a collection.
Yeah, so. Your point is well taken. I mean, if collecting books is really the same thing, though, I usually do read definitely every Stephen King book I've bought, I've read more than once. So I always feel like I get my money's worth out of that. But I do have other books that I bought that I've never read more than once, or some of them I haven't even gone around to reading yet. So it's interesting. And it's like the Stephen King movies now. They're all being re-released on Blu-rays, and I haven't bought any of them.
No. Yeah, it's like my collection of Stephen King books in different language. I mean, I think I have like 54 or 56 books.
All right.
And it's probably maybe 5 or 6 of those that I could actually read if I want to, because the other one is languages that I don't even understand. So
Yeah.
That is definitely a collection to collect and not a collection to actually use. So,
Yeah,
but we all have, and this is actually one of the times when I feel a little bit lucky that I'm not a very rich person because if I were, I would definitely be buying more than I would want to. So I guess it has its upsides not having too much money as well.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah.
I just want to, again, be careful here. And for people that do like these types of things to collect and that, I'm not disparaging what you're doing. I'm just trying to state that for me, just something that it's too late in the game for me to get interested in something like this now.
Yeah, and I think that what I wanted to point out by addressing this is that we see a change. I mean, that they're actually coming out stuff like this based on Stephen King movies and stuff like that, which it never did before. So
these content creators have all this stuff mapped out now. I mean, I think it kind of started back in the 70s with the Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
But now it's like big business, and they're mapping out all their revenue streams ahead of time and taking full advantage of them, and good on them. Their demand is there, so why not?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of Stephen King fans are collectors.
Yeah.
Mainly because I mean, if you compare Stephen King to other authors, he writes a lot, and there's a lot to collect. There's a lot of books, stories, movies. So I mean, if you have George Martin now, he's coming with the movies or the TV show Game of Thrones. But before that, I mean, if you come with a book like every fifth year, there's not that much to collect. But with Stephen King, that is so productive, there are a lot of things to collect. So I think that a lot of Stephen King fans are collectors at heart.
Yes.
And we all have our different things that we collect.
And everything that King writes eventually gets adapted, even poems. So
yeah, exactly. But it would be interesting to hear what you listeners think about all this merchandise coming out. Are you buying it? Do you think it's too much? What are your thoughts about it?
Yes,
it would be interesting to hear your comments on it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Anything else you want to say about?
No, I think I've said
Stephen
enough.
King toys.
Yeah. Well, I think I've said enough.
Okay, and I probably said way too much.
That's it for this time. Next time we will have a very special guest with us. Bev Vincent will join us. And of course, we're going to talk with anthology that he and Stephen King has edited together. Of course, I'm sure we're going to ask him a lot of other things as well. I mean, it's not every day you have a Stephen King specialist at hand. So I'm sure that will be a very interesting talk.
Yes, we might poke and prod him a little bit beyond just the anthology that he's releasing with Stephen King.
Yeah.
But you'll have to listen to find out if we do or not.
Yes, and that's next time.
Yeah. And that will be Bev Vincent's triumphant return. I like the way you say his last name. You sound like Chekhov from Star Trek, like Nuclear Wessels. You say Bev Vincent.
Vincent, yeah.
Vincent, yes.
That's a Swedish accent.
But until then,
stay safe.
But
stay scared.
The end. Bye.
Yep.
Bool.
Bye.